Hey everyone, welcome back to another Lead in Space Lightning Pod. This is Alessio, partner and P2 at Decibel, and I'm joined by my co-host Swix, founder of Small AI.
Hey, and today we have the epic return of Shreya Shankar. I think you were guest number 10 or 12 on the pod, but welcome back.
Yeah, I was early adopter of your podcast.
Early adopter.
Something.
I remember we were talking a lot about grounded research at the time. And then, since then I've had the opportunity to visit you on campus. And that was one of my most favorite trips, I think, last year. And also, I learned about DocETL, but also Lotus. And then I was like, this is actually a very promising area of research. Anyway, we also have Hamel Husain. I don't know if you've actually been on the pod, but I feel like we did the Raza Habib pod together. Anyway, but welcome.
Yeah, I'm glad to be here.
You are both doing a course on Evals. Tell us about it.
So I can go first. So, the thing that we keep talking about and writing about all the time is evals. And it's not because we're somehow obsessed with evals or there's some kind of, fairy that gives me money every time I talk about evals under my pillow. It's more, okay, anytime that I try to help someone build an AI application, they always get stuck on how to move beyond a demo product. And they get stuck how to systematically improve things and measure it. And that's a very central part to improving AI products. And so I've learned over the last few years that people really get stuck on this systematic measurement and evaluation of AI, which is really important. And so, I found that there's not that much material out there on how to do it. It can be a little bit mysterious for people. And so, what's motivating me specifically is, okay, can, we create materials that are accessible to everybody, even beyond, let's say, writing about it and giving examples, can we do lots of hands-on exercises and things like that? Because sometimes people need more. I'll let Shreya talk as well, or you can ask me questions. I think you might be muted.
I was just pulling up your evals chart because my role here is to kind of illustrate what we talk. But everyone should have this in mind. I think I have a slightly different formulation of this, but I think we all agree that evals are important for going to production. Yeah, Shreya, go ahead.
Yeah, echoing everything. And of course, you said evals are important. But there's two motivations for me. One is that there's a bunch of people who are now AI engineers that didn't have the ML engineer and data engineering persona, but still need to have data literacy. So how can we kind of help educate this new group of people so they don't get lost beyond the demo? The other thing is I think that AI engineering evaluation or evals here is actually different from ML ops or ML evaluation for traditional ML models. We were in a much more, data rich setting in ML ops. So we were taught to come up with loss metrics or even just better metrics to quantify performance. But today we're in this more data scarce settings, and then we have to kind of train ourselves. How do we look at data? How do we quantify our vibes? How do we systematically go about doing this? And it's not all hand wavy. There's a lot of tools that we can draw on, for example, from the social science literature, from qualitative research on how to make sense of, unstructured text data that comes out of an LLM. So I'm really excited to be able to put together this course with Hamel to teach the stuff that people just don't know about.
Yeah. So what, I think it's a really interesting point that the sort of type of evals that we used to do are maybe not the same kinds of evals. And I feel like we need a terminology or a taxonomy of these kinds of evals. We had in the New York conference, the Datadog guy, I forget his Diamond Bishop. I think he presented some ways in which he broke down evals, which I thought was pretty cool. Hamel, I think your talk didn't really touch on, I think you touched on evals a little bit, but yours are more about sort of product strategy, right?
Yeah, I tried to venture a little bit outside the what I always talk about.
Yeah, it was very brave talk. I would definitely say like some people on YouTube didn't get you have to invert everything.
Yeah, it's a little risky. Yeah, for sure.
They failed the reasoning test. So what is the syllabus?
Yeah, it might be good to pull up the landing page and we can talk through it. So let me get the link to that and I can put it in the chat.
No, I have it.
Right? You have it? Okay.
That's not the syllabus. Okay.
Oh yeah, that's for the lightning lesson. Maybe we can we could talk about the lightning lesson too. We can talk about the course. Okay. Either way.
I mean, the course is here. And then I think the syllabus.
Yeah, there's a brief syllabus there.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a little bit, if you scroll down a little bit.
There we go.
No, scroll up, maybe. Yeah. No, okay, yeah, you're right. Scroll down.
All right.
Sorry for leading you astray. Yeah. Shreya, you want to talk about this?
Sure. Okay, it's all in flux, but the high level idea is to break down this evals lifecycle from first, how do you even get started? What does it mean to come up with evaluations for something that you've never reasoned about evaluating? So part of that is creating synthetic data. Part of that is creating good evals, and kind of we slowly venture off into more complicated topics like LLM as a judge, error analysis. How do you kind of create this cycle of improving your AI application? And then throughout this whole thing, we will have at least two assignments, kind of like coding projects that you work on to kind of like implement a lot of these lessons. And we're hoping to add more, but it's going to be I would say that it's hands-on coding. We will do some live coding as well as assign homework. So I don't know if people don't like homework, maybe the course you can still cover the course, but expect to kind of be feel like you're in a class for 4 weeks.
Yeah. I would say, so Hamel, this is like your second time kind of doing this. The first time was, I think, the most successful Maven course ever. What are you doing again from last time? And then what are you doing differently?
Yeah, it's mostly what am I doing differently? Because first time, it was a course that it was about LLM fine tuning, mostly like open models and stuff. And it kind of morphed into it was a pile on of a lot of people, a lot of excitement. And, I invited my friends and one thing led to another. And then I was like, and then it became like a conference.
Yeah.
Which was not intentional, but we just went with the flow of what people wanted. This time we're going to stay really targeted towards evals because we really want to teach the subject. We don't want it to become a carnival, let's say. We want it to be, hey, we're really interested in teaching people evals. We've been writing about it for so long that, we want more information, this curated information. I think what I learned from last time is, it's mostly like the sort of logistics of doing a course, which, basically so I'm starting earlier. Last time was just sort of by the seat of my pants. So
yeah, this one there's a fair amount of lead time as well. Yeah. Okay. Got it.
You're being humble. Go for it.
No, go ahead. Go ahead. Sure.
Oh, I was just going to say, Hamel's being very humble. I think that was a great course. It was like the first massive LLM/AI course that I'd heard about. So I think that was very cool. And there are things that we are taking from it. We are figuring out interesting ways of integrating guest speakers or guest lectures. Of course, I think the challenge is tying that to evals and ensuring that connection actually holds. But no, I think Hamel did a great job. So we shouldn't be like, oh, we're doing everything differently.
It's the lead time of a feature or a bug when you're trying to do things in AI. It almost feels like, you're laying out the syllabus now, you're probably starting to put together some content and who knows what things are going to change. I think evals are maybe more time resistant in a way. They're less kind of flavor of the week. So yeah, I'm curious how you think about that and kind of balancing tried and true things versus like a lot of people always just want to experiment with new stuff, but sometimes it feels like a waste of time to me.
Yeah, no, that's a really good question. So for the last year and a half or so, I've been actually, like, I first started off being very hesitant about even talking about evals. I thought, okay, everyone knows it. Why do I even have to write about it? You know, surely people, you know, I don't know. I usually write for myself. So it's kind of strange for me to like write for other people. So I didn't do it for a while. And then it was only after a lot of encouragement, like people asked me the same question over and over again, that I started posting these. And then I found that like the subject is pretty evergreen because we're not, you know, over the last year and a half, like the same principles apply. And, you know, we're not really talking about like, you know, using specific tools and APIs. It's more of a general process in like data literacy and how you go about analyzing data and how you think about that. That is missing. And that's pretty stable. So I feel pretty good about it. I feel that, hey, it's not going to change. The only thing that could change is if you truly get ASI, you know, or AGI, but I don't, you know,
what do you need to,
I don't do anything according to that. Yeah. This is like an existential thing. So, you know, barring that, I don't feel like things change too much.
Yeah, I think techniques have stabilized. I think the kinds of failure modes of LLMs, I mean, they're still there, but it's not like changing every single day. We know that LLMs are bad at certain things. We know a little bit more about, say, limitations of the transformer architecture. And so we can kind of reason about what failure modes LLMs might have, especially, you know, for our data for specific types of workloads. So I'm kind of seeing that now more and more, like the same patterns, the same advice that we're kind of telling people. I tell Hamel things and he knows everything that I tell him now. So I feel pretty comfortable that, you know, if I'm telling Hamel something that I think is new, but it's not new, then we're probably ready to teach the course.
And the thing that's really interesting is like Shreya's research is really good. Like there's a lot of good UX patterns that make a lot of sense. You know, like, you know, you don't have to do every single step of evals manually. And a lot of those things have not been picked up by any commercial tooling yet, even though I use it in my workflow, like, you know, these concepts in my workflow. So I feel like the field is very slow to adopt. Yeah, things like in this paper, for example. You know, it's like one really huge thing about LLM as a judge. People love LLM as a judge, but you really have to make sure that you can trust the LLM as a judge. And so how do you trust anything is that you have to check it and you have to measure how good it is compared to some domain expert. There's no free lunch because like, if a human has to trust it, you have to check it. And so people don't have the, you know, so Shreya wrote this, what I would say like a really long time ago in AI timelines.
It's true.
And you know, this is not really appearing in any commercial tooling yet, even though we are using it, you know, with our clients and stuff like that. And so it just goes to show, like, I mean, I think this is a very evergreen topic. Like, it feels like people need to know about these things and make their life easier.
Yeah. Another thing to add to that, I mean, we don't talk about it in this paper, but people are very blocked in, you know, getting data to start testing their AI applications. And it just feels like people don't know how to do anything other than plan A, which is to go out and try to collect as much real world data as possible and take months because we're going to employ like human annotator teams to do this. Or plan B, which is I'm going to ask an LLM and like never look, I'm just going to prompt it for data. And it's going to give me 100 samples and I have no idea if that actually is what I would think is real. So really, like, you shouldn't do either one of them. You kind of want something in the middle. And what does that process look like? Like, how do you kind of ground your own expectations or even domain experts' expectations into kind of synthetic data generation? I feel like that stuff is really not talked about at all, but it's stuff that, you know, we think about on a pretty regular basis. And I'm excited to be able to teach that.
Yeah. Awesome. I mean, there's just a huge body of work. I think, one thing I would like some baselines on is what % of evals you see in the wild are LLM as judge? Are we talking like, are people doing like 90% LLM as judge or like, 30%?
I feel like it's 75% LM as a judge because it's low effort, it's kind of easy. But I would say out of the 75%, 80% is not helpful.
Yeah, I think that's a better metric to think about. It's like the cost of doing LLM as a judge now is quite low. So people, it's almost like a no-up to do it. Doing it right can give you a lot of value. Doing it wrong could be negative if you're looking at it and trusting it all the time. But
and are you positive on like dedicated LLM as judge LLMs? So like there's this we actually talked to Mahesh. I think his last name is like Satyamurthy or something. Bespoke Labs is trying to do like dedicated ones. I'm sure there's like a couple others as well out there. Do you like is it like the large models or dedicated models?
Yeah, and I also know like Hayes Labs has something like that. I forgot what they called it. Starts with an R.
Yeah, they just launched this like at the conference.
Starts with an R. Forgot the name. It's
I'll look it up.
Anyways, yeah. So those can be interesting. Like the main thing to focus on is like I put very little value in benchmarks, like general benchmarks. It has some value, but what you really need to do is like measure it in your domain and see if that LLM as a judge is more aligned than like an off-the-shelf LLM. And what I found is like, it's kind of, it doesn't seem like there's a free lunch that I can see yet, at least on the clients that I'm working with. But I think that's the part that people are missing, right? They're just saying, okay, like, so such and such put out these benchmarks for LM as a judge. They just use those LM as a judge, but they don't go about measuring how good the LM as a judge is. And so, yeah.
Yeah. And that's something that obviously is work that needs to be done. It's called Verdict.
Oh, Verdict. So it didn't start with the
Library for scaling.
Sorry.
Yeah, there's an R in there. Scaling judge time compute. Yeah. I think the thing that throws me off is like inventing your own scaling for compute, seems a little strange. Yeah, I didn't read much into this. I don't know.
I didn't get a chance to try this one specifically yet because it's so new.
Any other trends you see in evals that we should cover?
Trends in evals. Okay. Well, I think that
just
people,
patterns,
this is a really big one. One counterintuitive thing that has an extreme value that people kind of discover maybe accidentally, or if they're working with us, they discover very fast, is there's a really, so you really want to look at your data a lot, and there's a really high payoff to building your own application, like your own little web application that lets you annotate your data. And like, why is that? Well, it turns out that a lot of data has domain specific elements to it, meaning you have like various metadata about your traces. It doesn't live in a silo. And when you want to see that data, you want to render it in a way that allows you to check it as fast as possible. So it's not just, you might want to render the trace in a very specific way. Maybe it has like markdown in that trace. Maybe it has like rich elements. Maybe it has widgets. Every application is different. And what you want to do is render it in a way that allows you to see all the context you need, both the trace itself, but around the trace, things even external to the trace, and really dial it in for your domain and, allow you to annotate data and make notes and do your error analysis. And, AI is really, really good. Use Lovable, use Cursor, whatever. And it's a really high payoff. And I think people are starting to discover that.
Something that you just reminded me is Eugene's Align Eval. Would this count as one of those dedicated things? I guess this is still too generic, right?
I think this is definitely the right spirit. And I love Eugene. We're going to have him as a guest speaker, by the way, in the course.
Nice.
Eugene is basically one of my favorite people in AI. And, he's one of the people that also realized this importance of aligning the judge to a human. And that's what this project is about. And it's like helps people grok the idea by giving them an exercise to do that is kind of fun, and it gamifies it. So yeah, I mean, it's like, this is the right idea. It's the right idea in a lot of ways. So like, not only is this like, a nice web application, but it's like makes it fun. And these are the kinds of things you should try to do to like make it as painless as possible to look at data. So that's like one of the things that Eugene is like doing here.
It's like the Duolingoification of
It's very interesting. And I think he did a good job figuring out the right way to render these like paragraph long summaries. I think going back to what Hamel was saying before, people's LLM applications, like outputs might not be just paragraphs long. It might be words. It might be numbers. It might be long essays. It might be code. It might be charts. So, just having the right way to render that so you can really quickly scan many of them is super helpful. And there's just no kind of one size fits all. There's no like Excel like equivalent, that everybody is going to find is the perfect way to look at their data. I love Excel. I think it's great. You do Excel over nothing, but at some point people kind of get to that next level where they need something more custom for their use case.
I would say spreadsheets actually is a surprisingly minimal viable UI. The one that I reach for, fair disclosure, I'm an investor, is quadratic. I don't know if you guys have seen.
No.
In the same way that I think Hamel likes Marimo, which is like a sort of Python reinvention of the notebook. This is a Python reinvention of the spreadsheet. You can do all sorts of.
Oh, nice.
This is a spreadsheet, right?
Yeah, definitely.
That just has some custom cells and then some custom code behind it. And quadratic lets you write Python or, it seems like I can't really load it right now here.
Yeah, it's really interesting. I think we talked about it before, Swix. So one of the foundation of evals is error analysis. So like looking at your data and doing data analysis on your traces. So a lot of people, when we say data literacy, that can sound scary, but it can come from a lot of different places. It can be, it's not just data scientists and stuff like that. It's like people that have worked in finance, people that have worked as business analysts. A lot of people have some basic data literacy, and if you know how to use a pivot table, you can go a really long ways to do some basic data analysis. And there's a lot of like latent capabilities for people to get involved with like being part of evals. It's not like there's some, the bar doesn't have to be so high as being a data scientist, let's say. So I think that's interesting. In a lot of situations, you can use a spreadsheet. Not always, but you can start there. You can muck around, and that's important.
Yeah. My first spreadsheet pilling was Claude and Sheets, which I always love telling the story of how I got access to this while interviewing at Anthropic. And that actually prevented me from building so much because I was like, why would you do anything? You just use Claude and Sheets. And obviously that was wrong. Okay. Yeah. So cool. I think this topic, it's weird because it's like not everyone knows it's important. And I think you get a lot of points every time you say evals is important, FYI. And then, how do you make it like actually stick? It occurred to me that I think the similar thing that happened was kind of like the Six Sigma movement. You need like some cool name, like Six Sigma Black Belt, right? So you can be like some Align Evals or Evalgen Black Belt. And to be a black belt, you have to do like this number of evals. You have to get your organization to commit to achieving some kind of standard. But just like slap some cool title on it, people will do it.
So do you think it's like the name and the title would help? Because like one thing that I wrestle with is like evals is a solution, but the problem is, okay, your AI doesn't work or it doesn't work as well as you want it to. And people don't associate the solution with the problem cleanly enough because they don't know. They don't know what they don't know.
Well, I think you're going to educate people on that. And at some point, like you'll run it, you independently reinvent it no matter where you're starting from. You just have to. So I have some faith that like anyone who's like actually serious enough will find the problem, and then here you are sitting with the solution. So I find it's okay. I just think like people just need like an agile manifesto, like a really stamped way to do things that has enough sort of broad appeal. And the way that often do it is I just like I put a cool name to the thing and I just really give it a lot of wood and then it just starts taking off by itself. Like you don't really need to do anything else beyond that. So like I don't know. That's
Maybe
something
pick your brain on that. Yeah.
Yeah, that's good advice. Here we are just like, oh, let's have some cool assignments. I need to think bigger.
I think this is part of the process. You're figuring it out. And like, I tell people not to force these things, right? Like it'll come when it comes and like, it'll be obvious. It'll be something that you naturally describe in one of then you're like, oh, I really like the way that rolled off my tongue. Like people start using it organically, repeating it back to me. That's the sign of the traction. You can't force it from, top down, Anyway, cool. Yeah, congrats on putting this together. And I think we want to remind people that there's some kind of lightning lesson. That's a free sampler course or something.
Yes. Yeah. And that's we're going to talk a bit about error analysis. The very first stage. We're going to go over that. So it's a good teaser.
We've announced the date, right? Or we haven't announced the date.
Yeah, it
lightning lesson
is March 21st. So we got 10 days.
Perfect.
Yeah. Good luck. I think you're fighting a good fight. Always happy to spread the word. For me, the challenge is always with my conferences, how to present new trends on evals, which is why I asked you about trends. So I want us to innovate as a field while obviously reminding people of the fundamentals. And it's always a tricky balance.
Yeah, I think for new trends, it's really like Shreya has a few different papers of good, she does like really good research into human computer interaction and UX and also evals and the workflow. And those things are kind of like, if I were to fast forward 1 or 2 years, I would expect to see those in all the tools. It just hasn't arrived yet. I think people are slow, but I've definitely.
It might not be perfect. So I think that's going to take adaptation.
Yeah.
I mean, it certainly works really well for me, like on many clients. I mean, I adapt a little bit, but.
Yeah. So.
I think there's some interesting work right now on verifiers, which is not quite the same thing. But I think at some point this starts to collapse into that field. And maybe you can make it interesting from the point of view of, like you also need evals for chains of thought.
Yeah.
And that could be a cool thing.
You need evals to train your reasoning models.
All right. Awesome. Well, thank you so much for joining us. And this has been a nice, quick catch up.
Yeah. Thank you.